Election stress disorder. 62% of Americans say they have political views they're afraid to share. This is a new national survey, and it finds that self-censorship is on the rise in the United States. And I truly believe that. Yeah, I think a lot of people are afraid to share their opinions politically because they're afraid of the backlash. Joel Patterson joins me now, workplace culture specialist. Joel, how you doing?
I'm doing well this morning. How you doing?
I'm doing good. You take a look at this study, and it really shows how divisive politics have become, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. One of the things that was also in that study that's even more troubling is that how many people believe that it's a fireable offense for an executive to donate to a Trump or a Biden campaign.
I know, I saw
44% of people under 30. Yeah, it's we don't discriminate against race or gender or religion, but apparently it's becoming more and more likely that you can discriminate against your political leanings.
Yeah, and young Americans think even more so. Like they're good with it.
Yeah, and I don't understand it. I guess it's just because the bipolar nature of those conversations these days. If you're not for my guy, you're against me. Can't have any kind of conversation that's rational or not combative. And it's unfortunate. And in the workplace, you've really got to keep an eye on it because, say you're on a Zoom call and you see that somebody's got a Trump or a Biden T-shirt on, and if someone says something or not, there's bound to be someone on that call that is going to be upset and stressed out about the fact that you've done that. And you've got to recognize that you're there to do a job. And unfortunately, you don't want to limit people's right to have an opinion, but when it comes to the office, you kind of need to be able to just make sure people stay productive.
Joel, I've got buddies that have way different political views than me, and we might sit there and get in an argument or two or call each other idiots. But at the end of the day, I'm still drinking a beer with them. I'm still hanging out with them, and I'm still watching a game with them. I mean, it's amazing to me how many people won't do that. I mean, if somebody doesn't have the same political leanings as them, they look at that other person as the devil.
Or that they're just dumb.
Yeah, right.
You don't want your colleagues thinking that you're dumb, and you don't want to think that your colleagues are dumb. I mean, you've got to foster an environment of mutual respect for one another, and these kind of silly arguments turn into and devolve into something that kind of takes that away from the overall culture of the business.
Okay, so we take a look at the numbers here. The share of Americans who self-censor has risen several points since 2017. Majorities of Democrats, 52%, independents, 59%, Republicans, 77%, all agree they have political opinions that they are afraid to share. So in the workplace, you're a workplace culture specialist. How should bosses deal with political talk in the workplace?
Well, I've had this pop up in the last couple of weeks multiple times with people saying exactly that they just aren't comfortable with it. And you really got to, hopefully you've done the work beforehand. Hopefully you have already instilled in your organization a set of values that you live by so that you can treat people like adults and rely on those values when things like this come up. You're probably going to have to deal with it one-on-one, but we over the last few decades, we've kind of created a culture of compliance where you have to have a policy for absolutely every situation that could possibly occur. And so a lot of times the first question will be, well, what's your policy? Well, chances are you don't necessarily have a policy that addresses this specific situation. And so that's when you lean on your values and say, all right, why are you doing this? What is it being respectful to other people? Are you just trying to stir things up? And truthfully, for us, I just tell people, look, I appreciate that you have those views, but in the environment that we're in right now, please don't wear your Biden or your Trump shirts on a Zoom call, because not only are we talking to our colleagues, we're talking to our clients. And you just don't want to have that kind of situation pop up, and it's unfortunate because it's great water cooler talk, but this day, with the election less than 100 days away, I mean, you're just going to have to do something that you may not want to.
Joe, what about social media? You got a lot of people out there on social media expressing their views. You know how that could end up just creating a firestorm. You get that pack mentality attacking you. Should bosses ask employees to tone things down when it comes to social media politically?
Yeah, that's a slippery slope. Employees already know what they say on social media is more important than what they say in conversation these days. I think that's been beaten into everybody, and they realize it. But you really got, if you're going to create a policy, there's some things you've got to ask. Is it a total ban? You're obviously going to have different rules for people that are the general crew versus maybe a company spokesperson. If you're posting things that you might associate yourself with the company, you need to clearly state that that's a personal post. I mean, nobody really wants to have the big brother monitoring their social media. And I can tell you, I don't want to monitor people's social media. That's not a productive use of my time. And so, again, you've got to lean on your core values and make sure that people understand them and believe them. And if you haven't done that, given what we've got going on with work from home and just struggles we've got going on, then you're probably hurting from it right now. But if you have, then hopefully people will respond accordingly, and you'll be proud of what they ultimately do.
Talking to workplace culture specialist Joel Patterson, what about employees when it comes to social media? The employees that you've spoken to, you've been around, do they actually want a social media policy for discussing politics at work? Is this something that they would be open to?
You know, it's a mixed bag. I think most people do not, because they view that as more of a personal or a social thing. But they also recognize the fact that, I mean, even recruiting, you know, if you're applying for a job, you better clean up your social media history as much as you possibly can, because it's out there and people use that as ways to get to know you. So I find that the younger they are, the more they want to know what they can and can't do very explicitly. And the older they are, they're just like, well, just kind of leave me alone and treat me like the adult that I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the best answer is somewhere in between, where you're not. There's no way you're going to be able to identify everything that can or can't happen. And so really try and put something in place that allows people some flexibility, yet knows that they're going to be held accountable to what they say and do.
All right, Joel, thanks for the advice. Thanks for stopping by.